You believe helping others makes you noble. But what if some people don't want help? They want access to your energy, your loyalty, your soul. What if every time you rescue the wrong person, you quietly sabotage your own destiny? This is not cynicism. It is discernment, and few dare to practice it. Machiavelli understood something disturbing about human nature. Not everyone who asks deserves your hand, and not everyone you lift will remain grateful. Some will use your kindness as a weapon against you. In this video, you will uncover 7 types of people you must never help if you want to preserve your power, your clarity, and your inner authority. As you listen, notice which faces come to mind. If one resonates deeply, comment the phrase, "I choose discernment" below. Stay until the end, because the final truth is uncomfortable, but once seen, it cannot be unseen. Like the video, subscribe, and prepare to confront a rule most people learn too late. To understand why Machiavelli warned against helping certain people, you must step back into a world where survival depended on clarity, not sentiment. In Renaissance Italy, power was fragile, alliances were temporary, and betrayal was often disguised as loyalty. Machiavelli did not write for idealists. He wrote for those who wanted to see human nature as it is, not as it should be. His ideas echo older philosophies, from Stoicism to ancient realism, which taught that misplaced virtue becomes self-destruction. Helping the wrong person was never seen as moral superiority, but as strategic blindness. Over time, this wisdom was softened, moralized, and misunderstood, especially in a modern world that glorifies self-sacrifice without discernment. Today, many people are exhausted, resentful, and empty because they give endlessly to those who drain them. Machiavelli's warning speaks directly to this wound of our era: confusion between compassion and self-betrayal. The first type of person Machiavelli warns you never to help is the perpetual victim, the one who is always surrounded by misfortune, yet never responsible for it. This person speaks the language of pain fluently, and you feel your heart tighten when they talk, because their suffering sounds real, vivid, almost sacred. But look closer, and you will notice a pattern. Nothing ever changes. Every solution you offer is rejected. Every opportunity dissolves into a new complaint, and slowly you become an emotional crutch rather than a catalyst for growth. Helping them does not lift them, it traps you. Psychologically, this person gains identity from their wounds. Without them, they would feel invisible. When you help, you reinforce their narrative of helplessness, and over time, they begin to resent you for reminding them that change is possible. Machiavelli understood that power leaks through endless pity. Compassion without boundaries does not heal. It enslaves both sides. The second type is the ingrate, the one who receives your help and then rewrites history. At first, they seem grateful, even overwhelmed by your generosity. But as time passes, their gratitude fades, replaced by entitlement. What was once a gift becomes, in their mind, something you owed them. When circumstances shift, or when you can no longer give, they turn cold, sometimes hostile, as if your past support never existed. This is not a flaw of memory, it is a defense mechanism of the ego. Accepting deep gratitude would force them to admit dependence, and that threatens their self-image. So, they minimize what you did or criticize how you did it. Machiavelli observed that ingratitude is not rare, it is natural in those who confuse help with weakness. Helping such a person teaches them that your value lies only in what you provide, not in who you are. The third type is the manipulator, disguised as the helpless. This one is more dangerous because they are intelligent, observant, and patient. They study your values, your sense of duty, your moral identity, and then they appeal to it. They know exactly which words will make you feel responsible, guilty, or heroic. Unlike the perpetual victim, they are capable of action, but they prefer others to act for them. Every favor you grant tightens an invisible thread around you. Over time, you begin to feel drained, confused, even ashamed for wanting to step back. That shame is their tool. Machiavelli understood that manipulation rarely looks aggressive. It often wears the mask of vulnerability. Helping this person does not build trust, it trains them to exploit your predictability. The fourth type is the reckless dependent, the one who consistently makes destructive choices and expects you to clean up the aftermath. This person lives in cycles of chaos, impulsive decisions, broken promises, repeated crises. Each time, they swear it will be the last. Each time, you believe them, because hope feels kinder than realism. But what you are really doing is insulating them from consequences. Psychologically, consequences are teachers. When you remove them, you remove growth. Machiavelli would argue that helping such a person is not mercy, it is interference with natural correction. Over time, their mistakes escalate because they subconsciously rely on your intervention. And when the cost becomes too high, they may blame you for not saving them again. The fifth type is the envious friend, the one who smiles while secretly measuring themselves against you. They accept your help, but every act of support deepens their internal conflict. Your generosity highlights their dependency. Your stability mirrors their insecurity. And instead of gratitude, they feel humiliation. Envy is silent at first, but it accumulates. Eventually, it leaks out through subtle sabotage, passive aggression, or betrayal. Machiavelli warned that those who feel small in your presence will one day try to cut you down to size. Helping them accelerates this process because it reinforces the imbalance they cannot tolerate. You think you are lifting them up, but they experience it as proof of inferiority. The sixth type is the opportunist, the one who appears loyal only while you are useful. They align with you, praise you, and even defend you when it costs them nothing. But their allegiance is transactional, not principled. The moment your influence weakens or your help stops, their presence evaporates. Machiavelli saw alliances as fragile by nature, but he warned especially against confusing convenience with loyalty. Helping an opportunist teaches them exactly how to extract value from you while preparing their exit. They are not evil. They are simply guided by advantage alone. The danger lies in your illusion that shared moments equal shared values. The seventh type, perhaps the most unsettling, is the uncommitted soul, the one who wants the benefits of change without the discomfort of transformation. They listen, nod, agree, and even admire your clarity. They ask for guidance, insight, sometimes even wisdom, but nothing moves inside them. They are emotionally anesthetized, living in half-awareness. Helping them feels noble, almost spiritual, but it slowly erodes your own conviction. Their inertia dulls your fire. Machiavelli understood that energy flows downward. If you pour yourself into those who refuse to rise, you will descend with them. This type does not resist openly. They absorb passively, and that is why they are so draining. Across all these types, a single principle emerges. Help becomes destructive when it replaces responsibility, reciprocity, or growth. Machiavelli was not against generosity. He was against blindness. He understood that your time, attention, and effort are finite, and where you place them shapes who you become. When you help the wrong person, you are not just wasting resources. You are training yourself to ignore your own intuition. And that, more than any external betrayal, is the true loss. To go deeper into Machiavelli's warning, you must now confront what makes these people so difficult to recognize. They do not appear dangerous. They rarely arrive with malice on their face. Instead, they awaken something inside you, a desire to be good, useful, indispensable, even morally superior. This is where the trap truly lies. The ego loves the role of savior because it provides meaning without requiring inner transformation. Helping the wrong people flatters your identity while quietly eroding your strength. Machiavelli understood that the greatest threats are not external enemies, but internal distortions of virtue. When you help without discernment, you are often not serving the other. You are feeding a hidden need within yourself, the need to be needed, to be seen as righteous, to avoid your own solitude. This is why such help becomes compulsive. You tell yourself you are acting out of compassion, but beneath the surface, you may be avoiding the discomfort of saying no, the fear of rejection, or the guilt of choosing yourself. There is also a profound paradox at play. People who constantly receive help without earning it slowly lose respect for the helper. Psychologically, respect is linked to agency. When you remove someone's agency by overhelping, you unintentionally strip them of dignity. This creates resentment, even if they never articulate it. Machiavelli observed that humans admire strength more than kindness, not because they are cruel, but because strength signals order, stability, and safety. Excessive generosity, without structure, feels unstable. It creates an imbalance that the other person instinctively wants to correct, sometimes by devaluing you, sometimes by rebelling against you. This is why those you help the most are often the first to turn against you when circumstances change. It is not personal, it is structural. Another layer Machiavelli understood, but rarely stated openly, is that helping the wrong people trains them to misread reality. When consequences are removed, perception becomes distorted. The reckless dependent begins to believe chaos is survivable without cost. The manipulator learns that emotional displays replace effort. The opportunist learns that loyalty can be simulated. Over time, you are not just enabling behavior, you are reshaping their understanding of cause and effect. And when reality eventually corrects them, they may experience it as injustice rather than consequence. In that moment, they often look for someone to blame, and the helper becomes a convenient target. This is why helping can paradoxically turn into hatred. You were once the buffer between them and truth. When the buffer disappears, truth feels violent. Modern culture amplifies this dynamic by glorifying unconditional support while shaming boundaries. You are taught that saying no is selfish, that prioritizing yourself is narcissistic, that withdrawal is cruelty. Machiavelli would have recognized this as a dangerous inversion of values. In his view, morality divorced from realism becomes destructive. Helping must serve life, not fantasy. When help keeps someone stagnant, dependent, or dishonest with themselves, it is not virtue, it is disguised harm. The ego resists this idea because it wants simplicity, heroes and villains, good deeds and bad ones. But human psychology operates in gradients, not absolutes. Discernment requires you to tolerate ambiguity, to accept that sometimes the most ethical act is refusal. There is also the issue of timing. Machiavelli believed that even the right action at the wrong moment becomes a mistake. Some people ask for help before they are ready to receive it. They want relief, not transformation. They want rescue, not responsibility. Helping them prematurely interrupts their necessary confrontation with discomfort. Growth often requires a certain level of pain, not as punishment, but as information. When you intervene too soon, you steal that information. This is why repeated help often produces diminishing returns. Each time you step in, the person learns less. Eventually, you may notice that they come to you not for guidance, but for escape. At that point, your help has lost its educational function and become a sedative. Machiavelli also understood power dynamics at a level most people avoid. Every relationship contains an implicit balance of power, whether acknowledged or not. Helping shifts that balance. When done wisely, it creates mutual respect. When done blindly, it creates hierarchy without consent. The one who helps becomes dominant, the one helped becomes subordinate, even if both deny it. This hidden hierarchy breeds tension. The helped person may feel indebted, small, or controlled, while the helper may feel burdened, superior, or trapped. Neither position is healthy. This is why Machiavelli warned rulers to be careful with generosity. It binds people through obligation rather than loyalty. The same applies in personal life. Help that creates silent debt poisons relationships over time. Another uncomfortable truth is that some people do not want to change because their dysfunction protects them from responsibility. The perpetual victim avoids accountability. The uncommitted soul avoids risk. The manipulator avoids effort. Helping threatens these protective structures. As a result, they unconsciously sabotage your attempts. They forget advice, misinterpret support, or create new crises just as progress begins. If you pay attention, you will notice a pattern. The moment growth becomes possible, chaos reappears. Machiavelli would say, this is not coincidence, but resistance. Helping such a person requires more than resources. It requires their consent to transformation. Without it, your effort dissolves into repetition. There is also a spiritual dimension to this warning, one rarely discussed. Your attention is a form of life energy. Where you direct it, something grows. When you repeatedly invest attention in stagnation, resentment, or dependency, you normalize those states within yourself. You may become more cynical, more exhausted, less creative. Your inner world begins to mirror the very patterns you are trying to fix in others. This is why people who help indiscriminately often feel empty or lost over time. They confuse exhaustion with virtue. Machiavelli understood that preserving one's inner order was essential to effective action. A disordered helper cannot bring order to anyone else. Finally, there is the illusion of moral safety. Helping the wrong people gives you the comforting belief that you are on the right side of life, that you are immune to selfishness or cruelty. But this belief can become a shield against self-examination. You may ignore your own unmet needs, your own suppressed anger, your own unfulfilled potential. You stay busy fixing others to avoid facing yourself. Machiavelli's warning is brutal precisely because it strips away this comfort. It asks you to question not only who you help, but why you help. Are you acting from clarity or from fear of being seen as heartless? Are you guided by truth or by the desire to maintain a flattering self-image? When you see all this, the warning becomes clear. Helping is not inherently good or bad. It is a force, and like all forces, it must be directed with intelligence. Without discernment, help becomes a slow form of self-betrayal. With discernment, it becomes a precise instrument of growth for others and for you. Machiavelli's insight was never about becoming cold. It was about becoming awake. If you want to apply Machiavelli's warning without becoming cold or defensive, you must begin by training discernment as a daily practice, not a one-time decision. The first technique is the pause. When someone asks for help, resist the reflex to respond immediately. Silence creates clarity. Give yourself time to observe not just their words, but their history, their patterns, and their relationship to responsibility. Ask yourself quietly, does this person act differently after receiving help, or do they return unchanged, or worse, entitled? This pause interrupts emotional manipulation and allows intuition to surface. Intuition is not mystical. It is pattern recognition refined by attention. The second practice is the responsibility test. Before offering support, notice whether the person has already taken a concrete step on their own. Not intentions, not promises, but action. Help that follows effort reinforces growth. Help that precedes effort replaces it. You can even verbalize this boundary calmly, saying that you are willing to support once they take the first step themselves. Watch their reaction. Those who seek transformation will accept the challenge. Those who seek rescue will resist, guilt trip, or disappear. This reaction alone reveals more than long conversations ever could. A third technique is limiting the form of help you give. Instead of solving problems for others, shift toward guidance rather than rescue. Share perspective, not energy. Offer questions, not solutions. This preserves their agency while protecting your resources. If someone becomes frustrated when you stop fixing things for them, it means they were attached to the benefit, not the growth. Machiavelli would say that true support strengthens the other's capacity, not their dependency. When you feel drained after helping, it is a sign that the help crossed into substitution rather than support. Another essential practice is tracking reciprocity, not as a transaction, but as a signal of balance. Healthy relationships circulate energy naturally. This does not mean keeping score, but noticing whether there is mutual respect, effort, and presence. If you are always the giver and never the receiver, something is misaligned. Over time, this imbalance will erode your self-respect, even if you deny it. Machiavelli understood that imbalance breeds contempt on both sides. You can gently correct this by stepping back and allowing space. Observe what remains when you are no longer the provider. What remains is the truth of the relationship. You must also confront your internal obstacles. One of the most common is guilt. Many people help not because it is wise, but because refusing triggers deep discomfort. This guilt often comes from old conditioning, from being valued only when useful. Recognize that guilt is not a moral compass. It is an emotional residue. Acting against guilt when it conflicts with clarity is not cruelty, it is maturity. Another obstacle is the fear of being misunderstood. Some people would rather be drained than disliked. Machiavelli would say that reputation built on self-erasure is fragile and dangerous. You cannot control how others interpret your boundaries, but you can control whether you betray yourself. A powerful daily exercise is the energy audit. At the end of each day, reflect briefly on who you gave your time, attention, and emotional presence to. Ask yourself which interactions expanded you and which contracted you. This is not about judgment, but awareness. Patterns will emerge. You will notice certain names associated with exhaustion, confusion, or resentment. These are signals, not accusations. Over time, reduce exposure where contraction dominates. This creates space for relationships that are reciprocal, honest, and alive. Another practical shift is redefining kindness. Kindness is often confused with compliance. True kindness includes honesty, refusal, and distance when necessary. Sometimes, the kindest act is allowing someone to face the consequences they have been avoiding. This does not mean abandoning people in crisis, but it does mean not making their crisis your identity. You can care without carrying. This distinction is subtle but transformative. Machiavelli understood that distance can be an act of respect because it acknowledges the other's capacity to face reality. You should also learn to recognize early warning signs. Pay attention to people who react poorly to boundaries, who escalate when you say no, who frame your refusal as betrayal, or who only contact you in moments of need. These signals appear early, but are often ignored out of hope. Train yourself to trust patterns over promises. A person's behavior over time is more truthful than their words in moments of vulnerability. Finally, redirect your help inward. Many people who overhelp others neglect their own growth, rest, and vision. Use the same generosity, patience, and commitment with yourself. Invest in your skills, your clarity, your health, and your inner order. As you strengthen your own foundation, you will naturally become more selective, not out of fear, but out of respect for what you are building. When your life has direction, you no longer give indiscriminately because you understand the cost of distraction. When practiced consistently, these applications do not harden you, they refine you. You become calm rather than reactive, discerning rather than defensive. You stop rescuing and start relating. And most importantly, you help without losing yourself. If you listen closely, Machiavelli's warning is not telling you to close your heart. It is asking you to open your eyes. You have seen how helping the wrong people does not elevate them, it entangles you. You have seen how pity without clarity becomes a quiet form of self-erasure. How generosity without structure breeds resentment, dependence, and eventual betrayal. The 7 types you explored are not villains. They are mirrors of human weakness, sometimes theirs, sometimes yours. The danger was never in helping, but in helping without awareness, in confusing virtue with sacrifice, and compassion with self-denial. When you help blindly, you slowly teach others how to misuse you, and you teach yourself to ignore your own inner signals. Over time, this creates exhaustion, bitterness, and the feeling that no one truly sees you, even though you give so much. But there is another path. When you choose discernment, your help becomes precise instead of compulsive. You stop rescuing and start respecting. You allow consequences to teach where words cannot. You recognize that not everyone who struggles is ready to rise, and that it is not your role to carry those who refuse to walk. This does not make you cold. It makes you aligned. Strength and compassion are not opposites. They are partners when guided by truth. The moment you stop betraying yourself in the name of goodness, something inside you stabilizes. Your energy returns. Your presence becomes grounded. And paradoxically, the right people begin to find you, not because you give endlessly, but because you stand firmly. Now ask yourself this, quietly and honestly, who in your life grows stronger because of your support, and who grows weaker, who moves forward, and who stays the same while you grow tired? This question is uncomfortable, but it is liberating. You are not responsible for saving everyone. You are responsible for living with clarity. If this message resonated, stay with this channel, because what you are really learning here is not how to withdraw from others, but how to stop abandoning yourself. Leave a comment with the phrase, "I choose discernment," like the video, subscribe, and continue this journey, because once you see clearly, you cannot unsee, and your life will never be shaped by the same unconscious patterns again.